This is E&P Reports from Editor and Publisher Magazine, the authoritative voice of news media since 1884, serving newspapers, broadcasts, digital, and all multimedia news publishing. And greetings once again, Mike Blinder, publisher of E&P Magazine. As always, I bore you with housekeeping first. If you are listening to this program on your favorite podcast flavored platform, you must follow us. Please follow us. If you're watching us on our YouTube channel, there is a subscribe button below me, a bell to the right. Smash that thing. You'll get an update each and every time we upload a new episode of E&P Reports. I'm introducing a new friend. I don't know, Kevin, can I call you a friend? Because we never met. So I guess acquaintance. Is that the proper word, sir?
I think we'll soon become friends. So I'm okay with that.
E&P did not know you, sir, but we found you through the net we cast through 15 over 50. Our salute to aged people like me, which actually became 25 over 50 because the entries this year were amazing. It just went everywhere. It was like even Mike Allen participated from, Axios. I mean, this has become a big deal. But we found your story fascinating. So if I may, of course, to keep me honest from our newsroom, since I'm a business guy, Victoria Holmes. Victoria, contributing journalist and reporter for E&P. Good morning. Good afternoon.
Good morning.
Good to see you. Before we get into our commercial, I just want to talk about who nominated you and why this was so cool. You got like this glowing recommendation about being part of our program. Emily Metzgar, you know her, Director of School of Media and Journalism at Kent State. I assume she's on your team at Kent State University, right?
Oh yeah, she's the director of the School of Media and Journalism. She's a member of the Student Media Board. She and I work very closely together when it comes to student media and to the connections that we have between the school and the university and the students. So yeah.
I mean, and you are the director of Kent State Student Media. Most people know that because they clicked on this. They obviously want to learn more about you. But she says you wrangled a $750,000 annual budget, 400 plus students. Then you said you tackled challenges. Well, she has great writing. Through COVID, you kept the TV station on the campus open during COVID. You kept the magazine going during COVID. And you've done this in an impressive, wonderful way. Kevin, you don't look your age. I have to tell you that. I mean, I look definitely over 50, but you do not. But we're going to explore the world of student journalism. We're going to explore the world of Kent State student media and, of course, of Kevin Dilley. And we'll do that on the backside of this message.
This episode of E&P Reports is sponsored by IQ Audience Plus by Town News. Consumer revenue has never been more important. Digital leaders at media organizations worldwide are asking the same question. How do we accelerate the growth of consumer revenue? Traditional one-size-fits-all paywalls aren't the answer. They're blunt instruments that treat all visitors the same way, costing you money. IQ Audience Plus by Town News is a smart, dynamic metering solution that empowers you to maximize revenue by identifying key audiences, seeding engagement, and growing membership and subscriptions. Ready to supercharge your consumer revenue, grow engagement, and bolster your advertising income? Visit townnews.com/EP today to learn more about IQ Audience Plus by Town News.
All right, Kevin, I'm going to kick it off first. Victoria, you sit there and hum to yourself if that's okay, and I'll just be with you.
Oh, that's perfectly fine. Don't worry.
You're used to me. This is my program. I can do whatever the hell I want, right? Kevin, have you heard of Gordon Borrell?
Yes.
Of course you have.
I get their newsletter.
I've known Gordon for some odd years. I always go to his annual event. This year it's in Miami. He calls it Borrell Miami in January. Did an amazing panel. He had these kids from I can say kids because I'm in my 60s, from the University of Miami School of Communications come up on the stage. Like there were 9 of them. And they had spent months putting together this amazing presentation on their on-campus advertising agency called Orange Umbrella, the wonderful work they're doing. They're studying journalism, communications, media. The audience was amazed. These were young, Gen Zers about to enter the world of communications, journalism, and media. And then I asked this stupid question. I stood up after everybody was praising him, saying, you're now talking to over 500 executives that all manage local sales forces. This is called the Local Advertising Conference. This isn't about journalism. It's about money. And I said, How many of you would be motivated to go to Altoona, Pennsylvania, work for a TV, radio station, newspaper, and work with them to help local businesses want to market better? And none of them said they had any interest in that. Then somebody stood up and said, can you name a radio station from the town you came to? No one could name one. Can you name a TV station? No one could name one. Luckily, when we said newspaper, about 3/4 of them could at least name the daily paper. It scared the hell out of me, because our industry, when I entered as a consultant, I know I'm leading this with a long question, but hell, it's my program. I started as a consultant in this industry in 2001, similar to when you went off and started working at Creative Circle and helping the industry grow. And I was cautioned that this was an industry of fat old white men by a guy named Peter Zollman. You may remember him back then. It hasn't changed. We're still fat old white. This is not an industry that's getting diverse, that's appealing to the young. What say you as an educator of budding journalism media students? You're teaching them everything: how to do print, how to do broadcast, how to do all forms of social media. I've seen you guys have how many brands coming out of there that they're all managing for you? These are actual professional magazines. You sell advertising. You're doing it all. You're building them into the world of our media culture. Will they join our world? Will they ever look at a legacy media brand and say, yeah, I want to help them grow? Or are we dead? There's your opening question, sir.
Well, we're dead if we don't innovate. And I think we all know that. We've heard that for 2 or 3 or 4 decades. You and I, Mike, we've been around long enough to be hearing that. And so, I'll start with that. That's one of the things that I wanted to talk about that really inspires the group of young professionals that I'm working with to come in here into this office and find new ways to solve the old problems, how to raise revenue, how to engage the audience, how to share content. And so we started something a few years ago called Flash Lab Innovation Initiative, in which we're doing several different things, including a pitch contest, including this year we're giving away innovation grants to our media partners to encourage them to try new things. And so we can do that, obviously, in a collegiate space. We have a little more runway to do that. We're not as hard pressed as all of you are with your daily and weekly and monthly revenue deadlines. We still have those, mind you, but we encourage innovation. And so not only do students want to, but I can give you a list of students who have just left and are doing that. My sales manager, Jenna Gobrecht, just left, and she could have gone a lot of places. She stayed locally and started with a startup company, a hyper local here in Portage County, started by a former Kent Stater editor named Ben Wolford, who's trying something really cool. And she joined him and is working her butt off to try to raise revenue and help him succeed. So
but this is not a legacy media company. This is a startup.
That's a good point.
One of the questions we asked you, and here, okay, spoiler alert, if you haven't read the magazine or 25 over 50, one of the questions you answered, and it's in the magazine, and you should read it. It's wonderful. What are your predictions for where news publishers, news media is heading? And you said these words, quote, the news publishing and news media industry will continue to return to the people. After years of experimenting with citizen journalism, blogging, hyperlocal, and other such things, these small, independent community folk, you say nothing about mastheads, brands, broadcast television, news operations. And I'm not trying to get negative. I mean, look, Penn Doctor started his startup all new. He said, I'm not going into the culture of the old. Are you one of those? Are you one of those that believes the future will be outside of the legacy brands?
No, I'm not at all. I think that the legacy brands are doing some amazing things, and the challenges are obviously there, especially among local and regional publications, who are, I think, hardest hit when it comes to having, again, that bandwidth from a revenue standpoint to try things. We know trying things cost treasure and time to do. So, but we have to do that. That's what I think younger professionals want to be involved with. They don't want to go and get in line. They want to go and start and make an impact from day one. And we talk a lot about that at Kent State. We talk about empowering young professionals with practical and professional experiences. That's one of the experiences at Kent State Student Media. But so when our students go off to internships, our general manager of our TV station just came back from the Today Show, where he was this summer, and was an intern and doing typical.
So there's legacy. There's broadcast. There's legacy. Yeah. Okay.
And we have students. Ryan Dunn is at Fox 5 in Las Vegas, and he graduated 4 or 5 years ago and is a senior director now. And a young woman named Anna Huntsman has just. She wanted to be in broadcast. She still is, but she's with IdeaStream up in Cleveland doing radio reporting. So I think young people are interested as long as they can be plugged in. Not immediately. I think there's a misnomer that Gen Xers and Boomers have that our younger colleagues in the millennial generation and even in the Gen Z generation want it all right now. That's not true. They all want to work just as hard as we did. They know that there's a pathway, but they want to be involved immediately.
So they don't want to just to get
difference.
They don't want to just to get coffee and stack chairs. They want to immediately get into it. It's like, okay, well, Victoria, you are that generation.
Yes.
Get ready, because I'm turning it over to you now. This is how I'm doing the segue. I'm spinning the letter. I'm Vanna White now. So get ready to pepper him with questions. But you are of that younger generation. Are you Z or millennial?
I am Gen Z.
Okay, you're Gen Z. You working in legacy, right? You've worked in broadcast in Dallas, correct? You were a reporter. You're still writing down there. You're still reporting in Dallas. I should not interview the interviewer. How do you feel about legacy media's top of mind brand to become the workplace for someone like you? Because you entered legacy and you're working with us on our brand. So, I mean, do you see your colleagues feeling the same way as you do?
So I left legacy media because I did not get the support and I did not feel as if I was actually making an impact as a journalist.
Wow.
And so I'm not sure if I would necessarily consider E&P a legacy media from my viewpoint as a journalist, because it's something that I contribute to. So it's not like a full-time corporate ladder type of deal, because that's usually how I see legacy media. But I left legacy media because I saw the path laid in front of me and I saw a lack of innovation in that path. And so I always knew I wanted to do something that was true storytelling and not necessarily a formula to get something on the 5 o'clock news or 6 o'clock news.
Kevin,
essentially some of these are formulas.
Kevin, are you hearing what you hear?
Well, I just want to say that Victoria and I did not plan this ahead of time.
I know. I started this.
I think we're both speaking our truths, which is what we're experiencing. Me as a 52-year-old, director of student media, working with lots of really energized young professionals, emerging professionals, and Victoria clearly experiencing it as a young professional.
So I want to, go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say, take it away, Victoria. Talk to Kevin.
I'm curious to know what type of stories are exciting to the journalists that are entering your space, your newsroom. Are they more feature, like length stories, or are they more, I don't know, like watchdog stories?
I would say it's both of those. It's still breaking news. Breaking news still gets our teams energized. We had a very difficult story to tell on the first day of, this is the first week of classes. Unfortunately, we had a student killed in an accident on campus. And I was in the student media leadership meeting, and the editor of the Kent Stater and the general manager, they're on their phones starting to work it. And I said, well, if you got to go, you got to go. And they said, no, we've got our teams going. But there was movement and well, I can say this excitement. I mean, they understand the gravity of that story, but we know how journalists get. They want to move quickly and get that story done as quickly as possible and as accurately as possible. So that certainly does. We don't have a ton of breaking news. That doesn't happen, and so they certainly are interested in doing feature stories that are sharing voices, especially voices that aren't being shared. We have a lot of student leaders who are who are tuned into that, trying to connect with audiences in places where they don't regularly see stories being told. Investigative journalism still is something that our students want to do. It's difficult. We teach it here. We teach a few different classes that delve into that, and it's certainly encouraged by the advisors, the faculty advisors who work with our students. And so I think those are the same types of stories that I was wanting to do when I was coming up. I think they're still similar.
Mm-hmm. Have there been any conflict with the administration with what you're doing and everything with what the students are wanting to do?
No, Kent State is well, I shouldn't say no conflict. There's always some conflict. Kent State, one of the reasons I came here is they have written into their policy the no prior review, full support of the student leaders who are selected by a student media board. The student leaders have full content control, and it's written right into top level policy. And from the president on down through the dean of the college, through Emily Metzgar, the director of the school, there's a strong support and understanding that the students should be learning to be responsible journalists. Now, is there conflict? Sure. Anytime you have a journalist trying to interview a subject, especially about something sensitive, there's inherent conflict. But the professionals on campus deal with our emerging professionals, student professionals, the same way they would deal with any other media.
Mm-hmm.
May I ask a question? Do you teach a course or instruct or have some form of dialogue with these students about the state of local media today? Do you analyze what some call the echo chamber of cable news, the left versus right, the Rupert Murdochs versus the Comcasts of the world? I mean, do you get into dialogues about that? And I'd be curious to know, what does the Gen Z feel about the news that, as you said, the older, the 35 plus individuals of our society tend to consume the most today? What is their opinion of it when you have these, if you do have these dialogues?
So I don't teach. I have taught at the university level, but I currently don't teach any classes. I will say that my colleagues, well, I don't think we necessarily have a class specifically devoted to that one topic. It comes up in all of the classes. Connie Schultz is one of our professors and is a syndicated national columnist involved in these types of conversations. Stephanie Smith is a wonderful professor here. And so I know that those conversations come up regularly in different ways. They also come up in the newsroom. I know that I've walked in the newsroom and they'll be talking about those kinds of things. I'm not sure if I fully understood the second part.
Well, I want to know their opinion of the news that the 35 plus consume, and if they think it's just a joke, or do they see through it, or do they start to become immersed in it themselves and get into those? When I talk about for those that understand the echo chamber philosophy, I don't even know who made up that term. It simply means that an MSNBC viewer tends to only get influenced now by MSNBC. Yeah. The Fox News viewer is only, and no one's looking at both sides of the equation. And that feeds the advertising of these entities, but it does very little to shine that. What's that beacon? I love the scripts, shine that beacon of truth throughout a society. Then you have a true Madisonian democracy. Not to get too ethereal, but what the hell? Go ahead, sir. I'm sorry.
My sense from the not just the student leaders, but the student staff members as well, the reporters and the writers, the photographers, is they're trying to do journalism in a lot of ways that we learned how to do it. They're looking for fairness, accuracy, context, and so I think they're not as interested in the echo chamber stuff. They are interested in making sure that they have multiple voices coming through their outlets. Now that doesn't always happen. We talk about this, and we just had at the leadership meeting, we had a discussion about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, which is something we do yearly. And we know that we still struggle with being a diverse organization ourselves. I mean, that's we haven't solved that. We focus on it. So as far as the echo chamber stuff, I think they want to move past it. They have opinions and they want to run those opinions, but they also want to be open to other opinions and keep a conversation going. There's a commitment to that from the faculty who help advise and guide these students. But the students are bringing that in themselves as well.
I'm going to turn it over to you, Victoria, in about 2 seconds. So get ready for the letter to turn. But I was just reading about the death of not the death, but they're just the audience for the evening talk shows is starting to go away in our society. And that was a huge influence on me as I was growing up and what was cool, what was hip. Johnny Carson, by the way, Victoria, Johnny Carson was a host on television a long time ago. Don't worry about it.
I studied him in school. Don't worry, I know.
Possibly one of the most incredible entertainers that ever, and talk show host, but he determined America in a lot of ways for decades, what was cool and not cool. I'm just seeing that when that goes away, and they may be not that entire platform may go away. Maybe in the future, these echo chambers will go away because the students you're training today just won't even be looking at that as a source of news. That's just the reason I brought it up. I was curious if they will enter our spectrum or will they move into a different sphere? But I guess that's just theory and all that more. I mean, but their minds they are the consumers of tomorrow, correct? They are the future. Victoria, up to you.
Yes. So I just wanted to make a comment on that last note or a point that you were making. So I saw somewhere that the person who took over, and I forgot her name, Rachel Maddow's MSNBC show,
yes,
did horrible in ratings and did horrible in the demographic that they were, I think 18 to 35 is what they were shooting for. And so I think that kind of gives some evidence to your point that we're kind of moving towards a different form of media to get our news.
right.
I thought that was a really good harbinger, I don't know if that's the correct word, of where the future of media is going in terms of cable news and where people of my generation are getting their news.
There you go.
So I wanted to ask, how do you push students out of their comfort zone to go after tough stories?
That's a great question, and I'll have to admit first that I'm not regularly involved in trying to do that in my role as the director of student media. So I'm sort of answering secondhand here. But I watch Sue Zake, who is our award-winning faculty advisor, and Gretchen Hoke, and some of our other advisors who do this. And we refer to Sue as our chief instigator. And so the way that Sue does it as an advisor is we just put things in front of them. We ask the students questions. We say, did you know about this? Or have you heard about this? Or what are you doing about this story that was reported over here? Is this something you think is worth looking into? So again, we very much want the students to decide what they want to report. They don't report what I want them to report. They don't report what Sue wants them to report. They report what they decide to report. And that's one of the empowering things about student media. Now, it can also be a bit frustrating as a seasoned journalist. You're like, you should go after that. You're thinking that. But we try not to influence them unduly that way. That's not our role at all. But the way that we push them is just by raising the questions and helping them to see things when they're not seeing them. And I was this way as a young journalist. I remember in the newsroom in Missouri. I was at the University of Missouri, and I was the county government reporter, and I came back from a major story. I didn't think it was major because I was 20 and didn't think county government was that interesting. But I remember getting yelled at by my editor, Sharon Harrell. I remember her name. It was one of the best lessons I could have ever learned because I learned that was important to our audience. So, oops, sorry, my light went off.
It's back on. Don't worry. And 85% of our audience can't even see you, so don't worry about it. They're all on Spotify and Apple downloads. Relax, no problem.
So Victoria, really to answer your question more succinctly, it is just sort of a constant, advising. working with them, and providing the support that they need. My role is to help provide the support, whether it's financial, trying to help get them paid more, whether it's technology that they need, or sometimes it's just emotional support. I stopped the news director and the general manager after they covered this story of this student who had been killed, and I reminded them that I asked them if this was the first time they had done a story like this, and they said yes. And I reminded them the things you need to do is to breathe, to take time for themselves. And so we provide all kinds of support across the board, whether it's emotional, financial, other ways, but it's constant. That's, I think, the answer.
I have one more question, Mike, before if you wanted to ask another one. So I was actually in school during the pandemic lockdowns where they sent everyone home. And it was really hard to be motivated just to even like finish school and graduate. Even the diploma wasn't motivating enough. What kind of conversations how did your team like rally the students to continue to put out content and information and news and do the work that goes into producing any of the news publications and all the stories?
Well, thank you, Victoria, for sharing, first of all, your feelings and experience on that. I think that was not uncommon, that those types of emotions going through that. I think it was, for me, one of the most difficult times in my career. And I can't even imagine trying to be a young emerging professional, you're trying to take off, and here you are completely hampered. So congratulations for being here today and getting, sticking with it and getting through it.
Thank you.
And Mike, you said at the beginning something about I did this and I did that. And I want to make clear that I didn't do very much. Certainly not alone. As with any great organization, we are a team of many people. And so I didn't get us through the pandemic. We got through it together. And I'm not, this isn't just happy talk. This is the truth. The students were the ones who motivated themselves and found solutions. And we provided the resources. We kept the TV station going, but we also, there was a period where they were running their broadcast from homes, from different, we sent the computers home with them. That was a solution that came out of the newsroom. And certainly I was involved as the director, but it involved many people. So how did the students do it? I don't know. I think this is a PhD study yet to be done on how they did it. We weren't perfect. I mean, it's not like we had a couple of, we have 10 media partners in Kent State Student Media, and 2 of them really struggled. And they continue to struggle today. And I still think those are results of COVID. However, I just had a meeting with one of the student leaders. Well, he's not quite yet the leader, yesterday, on how we can continue to try to rebound. So there's still this energy to try to come out of that. But I kept saying, this is my mantra: patience, kindness, and flexibility. And that's how we're all going to get through it. And so we were flexible. If we couldn't be in a space, we figured out another way to do it. We continued paying our students. There was a point where there was a question of, we all went off campus and work had sort of ceased. So should we pay them? Well, this was the university doing this, said, yes, you can continue to pay them. So we continued paying them. We had the money already allocated. We continued paying them. So those are a couple of ways. But Victoria, back to you. I don't know if I know the answer. I'm still trying to parse it out. But it came from our students, and I think, again, it's because we have a pretty strong collaborative network here, and I think they needed each other, and that's what they got.
Kevin, I'm going to turn to the business side we're getting to the end of our journey. But as you know, I can't spell 2 words. That's why Victoria's on this thing, to keep me honest from the newsroom. But I spent, 35 years of my life selling advertising, first in radio, then television, then started one of the first online newspaper websites, and then, the whole thing about multimedia and this industry. I remember consulting in my consulting days, the Missouri, on the campus of MSU. I was actually brought in to help the students understand multimedia selling, because they were just selling ads. I mean,
Yes.
just a box or on a website, a box on the website, and they're using great cards, and whoever was training them had no idea. Because this college, no offense, but Woody Allen once said, "Those that can't do teach; those that can't teach Jim." That's not. It's not against you. I'm saying because this person had never really been on the street, and we blended in geofencing. They never thought of having the ads also appear in all the mobile devices on the campus. And we actually found a way to get the images on some of the screens around the campus. You see where I'm going? Just by sitting down with the kids, and they got all into this innovative project. How advanced is yours? Are these kids learning the business side when it comes to monetizing the essential content you're creating? Is it being instructed, in your opinion, in a real world sense, or is it not even that valuable, in your opinion, that they have to learn that within this environment? I'm just curious.
It's absolutely valuable. I would say we are doing a moderate to good job, and we can do much better. Not, and I'm talking about within my office. I mean, there's so many things that I don't know that I want to continue learning about and being able to share with my students and have them take off with it. So, and part of it is the pace of change. That's something we've gotten used to over the years, is that we just have to be nimble and agile and ready to change. It's certainly, to some extent, being taught in classes. We have the School of Media and Journalism in this building, but we also have the School of Emerging Media and Technology. And that school is just a few years old in its iteration, and it's something that Dean Amy Reynolds has really led at the university. And we're within a really cool college that has different disciplines. And so while I can't sit here and say it's everything you just mentioned is being taught at every level, there's an openness to exploring those things and trying to equip our students with them so that they can go get jobs with some of the publishers who are listening today and help make an impact on day one. I mentioned the innovation grants and the Flash Lab innovation kind of mindset. This was something, 4 or 5 years ago, I realized that we teach a lot of things at this school and at other schools, but we don't teach innovation as well as I think we should, especially not in student media. And so we started that. And what was happening around the same time, in fact, a little bit before I had this idea, was Kent State has a thing called the Design Innovation Hub, which is trying to pull innovators from different disciplines all into one space. So we're part of that now. We're one of the nodes, and we get to interact in different ways. And I think that helps us learn from other disciplines. So those are some of the things going on here, but it's starting to really, really click and starting to stick with our students who are starting to come up with some really cool ideas. Now, we're not making thousands and thousands of dollars off of these ideas.
But think about it. Your student population is a huge, lucrative place for advertisers to find. I mean, I always said whenever I went into hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cities all over the world when we were consulting, and I always used to say state capitals and university towns were recession proof. You have a base of money. And there was such a broad base of advertisers that want to tap that campus, not just the students, but the faculty as well. So it becomes interesting that if you're training them, because that's what it's all about today, niche marketing. So there's my 2 cents. I got to bring this home before I ask my final 3 questions, which are going to be quickies. This is going to be a speed dating thing we're going to do.
All right.
Victoria, any final thoughts or things you'd like to ask Kevin?
So I have one last question, and that's like preparing students for entering the professional world. What sort of conversations go on? Because I'm hearing that your newsroom is very empathetic and it's supportive, and you're giving students the tools that they need to succeed in what they're doing and the news stories. Not all newsrooms are like that, unfortunately, and that includes a lot of the newsrooms why we're having like a mass exodus of reporters leaving the journalism industry or going independent. Are you having any sort of like real life conversations about how newsrooms can operate?
So when I have to have a courageous conversation with some of my team and have to, criticize them for something, whether it's professional mannerisms, whether it's their work, I do it in an empathetic teaching way, because that's what I am supposed to be here. But I always say to them, I say, you may not get this conversation like this when you leave this space. You will run into different organizations that have different standards. So please don't take this as that. So I know that we do that a lot. Me and my colleagues do that a lot on one-offs. We certainly do as best we can to prepare them for that. We don't want I don't refer to the world outside of here. This is all the world, and our the way we run things, I think, is legitimate and valid. But I do, Victoria, agree with you and understand that our students have to know that they're going to come up against different organizational mindsets. The internship program that we run through the school helps prepare that for them. They're required to do internships, so they get another experience. We have another thing called News Lab, which is something we created. Sue Zake was led on this, but I was supporting it at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was a way to help connect students to organizations that needed help. And so we have a lot of external experiences that they get before they graduate to help answer some of those questions as well. So,
all right. Well, here's my final. You're only going to be able to answer this in 1 minute or less. You ready?
All right. I'll turn my timer on.
And then one of the reasons we pulled you out of our 25 over 50s is your amazing response to the last question you always ask. What lessons have you learned in your career? And you gave these amazing words. And I'm not going to do them all because I want people to go to the magazine, go to the website, and read your entire article about you. But what did you mean when you said fact check your mother? Remember, 1 minute or less. Go.
Well, this is what I learned at the University of Missouri. It means to be skeptical in a healthy way. And I've learned this at Missouri, and then in my first jobs, and then throughout my career, is that people will try to use you if they know you have a platform. That's what we try to teach young journalists. And so that includes your mother. That includes the people closest to you. And that doesn't mean you don't love or trust them. I love my mother. Mom, if you're listening, I'll see you soon. But what that means to me and what I was taught was even the people closest to you, make sure that you just don't take for face value.
Okay, the next one, there's only two more to go. What did you mean when you said the schoolhouse gate?
So that, I think, if I remember correctly what I wrote, I should have reviewed it. I discovered journalism as a junior in high school because of Sue Welker, who was my teacher. And she inspired me, not because of the writing, Mike. I was kind of like you. I didn't really do so well with the writing and reporting part, even though I kept trying longer than you did, maybe. But what I got inspired by was the law and ethics behind journalism, the reason why journalism is an important part of our democracy.
There you go.
That just inspired me to want to go into this field, stay in this field in any way that I can and help support it.
And this is a great segue into our cover story for September, which is about reporting on the crisis in democracy, because your exact words were, taught me that the First Amendment should be vigorously defended. Well done. Final one. You ready? Here we go.
Yep.
What did you mean when you said show, comma, don't tell?
Oh, that's a Bill Ostendorf thing.
Oh, is it? Okay, go ahead.
Bill taught me that one. That's also because my background is, as you may have seen, is strongly in visual journalism as a photojournalist, as right. a visuals editor, a designer, and all of those things to me were storytelling. Just in the same way that you might use the written word or video or audio to tell a story, and I think that in any of that you show how people are feeling. Instead of me telling you, I show you through their words. And so I use that though in my student media board meetings. I think that the more that I can show them the impacts of what we do instead of me just telling, I think we're at a better place of understanding each other.
Full disclosure, Bill Ostendorf is the owner of Creative Circle Media. We host our website within that CRM platform, and you spent 10 years working there. Victoria, thank you so much for your valuable time. Also your insights, which I really appreciate. Didn't she do a great job? This was a wonderful interview about the future we have to face when it comes to our audience and our staffing with the Gen Zs that are coming into our society. By the way, according to Gordon Burrell, Victoria, within 8 years, you will be the news consumer that everybody's going to want to have. You'll be in that demographic. So Keep going.
Yes.
We
I'm
appreciate.
ready for that power.
Kevin.
That's why we should listen to Victoria.
I think Kevin Dilley, director of Kent State Student Media. Congratulations, obviously, on all the success you've had there. 25 over 50. Stay young, stay powerful, and keep the good. Keep the message going, sir. We really appreciate your valuable time.
Well, thank you for having me on today, and thank you for all that you both do for our industry and for our young professionals that are coming up. They need the connections, but they are bringing the energy.